with the reappointment of Mr. Hector Gallegos to the Board of the Los Angeles Convention Center Commissioners. This is for the term ending on June 30th, 2017. The City Ethics Commission staff have reviewed the Commissioner's Statement of Economic Interest and have submitted their report to the Council.
Thank you very much. And Hector, what's your favorite convention?
Favorite convention? Ooh, that's a toss-up between E3 and the auto show.
Okay, good. We love that auto show. We love E3. And where'd you go to high school?
Venice High School.
Wow, very local. Then you went right up to Loyola Marymount.
That's exactly right.
Wow. That's great. Well, this is good. Joe, you have any questions? This is a reappointment.
Reappointment?
We have good attendance, and never were talking in class, so
Try not to,
you got it.
not unless asked to.
We're looking forward to a more robust discussion on the future of the convention center's relationship. And I just know, you could ask some questions in a minute, but I just got to say, it's an important time to have your guidance and thought there. It's an important time because I think all government should be an era of partnerships in various ways in order to continue its efforts. So I'm going to turn it over to Councilman Buscaino.
Wow, we're on the first shot,
I know,
Mr. Chair.
Working the weekend.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Commissioner, thanks for your service to the city and to the convention center, what you continue to do. There's a lot of talk right now with rebuilding the West Hall, privatizing the convention center. What are your thoughts? I know we're going to hear more about it today, but what are your thoughts on moving forward and as you continue to serve on this commission?
So if I may, let me start by saying that I'm very proud to be associated with the LACC team. Despite the economic downturn of the last several years, the LACC has been able to operate in the black. And let me be very specific about what I mean by that. Its operating revenues have exceeded its operating costs, and that is a significant feat. It is unique relative to its competitors, and this feat has been accomplished to a large part based on the strength of its management team and its workforce. So again, I'm very proud to be part of that team. As far as going forward, I look forward to working with the mayor and the CAO's office in order to effect that vision of how it is that we can improve, increase economic impact to the city, while at the same time keeping down any further stress on the general fund.
Any suggestions that you may have to improve the revenue coming in into the convention center?
I would just piggyback and echo off of what it is that I have seen in the CAO's proposal, and specifically the idea of increasing citywide events makes a lot of sense going forward. And as far as getting into the details, I would probably be inclined to defer to the CAO.
Great.
Well, we're going to both recommend it. This is great. Thank you for your service. Forthwith. What famous movie was filmed at Venice High School?
So you're going to ask me to select just one. Let's go with Grease.
Very good. All right, here's a bonus question. Where was the dance scene filmed? At what Los Angeles high school?
It depends on who you ask. Most folks would tell you that it's Marshall High, but also LA Unified, which is important. And I am a product of LA Unified.
Right.
Yeah.
It was Huntington Park, the dance scene. Huntington Park High School, but the carnival scene was
Carnival was at Marshall High.
at Marshall High. And
Nothing at San Pedro High School? Any of that? No.
none of that San Pedro. They didn't make it, and they didn't go south of the 405. And, all right.
And if I might, I'd like to add a footnote.
Yeah.
In light of astronaut Neil Armstrong's recent passing, I'd like to comment a shout out to the space program. Walt Cunningham of Apollo 7 fame was also a Venice High alum.
Great
And
to
he
hear.
named the science building after him. So just a tip of the hat.
That's good. Very good point,
Thank
Mr.
you,
Gallegos. Thank you so much. Recommend approval.
Yes.
Item number 2, please.
Yes. Item 2 is the mayor's reappointment of Mr. Douglas Krause to the Board of Harbor Commissioners for the term ending June 30th, 2017. Again, the Ethics Commission staff have reviewed Commissioner's Statement of Economic Interest and have submitted their report to the Council.
Thank you very much. I'm going to let Joe go first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Krause, thanks so much. You've done some amazing work, you and your colleagues on the Harbor Commission. I want to thank you for your continued effort in improving the air quality and being a good neighbor to both Wilmington and San Pedro communities. With that, the Clean Air Action Plan specifically, in your opinion, has been the key to making this happen with support of all relevant stakeholders, business community, environmental groups, et cetera?
And then before Mr. Kraus speaks, I got called, summons to a committee vote downstairs.
Oh, boy.
I'm going to go down for 2 minutes and then come right back up. Joe, you got these other items?
Okay,
Continue.
very good.
Thank you.
I think the key was two things. Part of it was getting the environmental groups, the labor, the industry in the same side. The other part was really, it was actually really the impetus was the mayor, the two mayors, to get LA and Long Beach together. That, as you probably know, I think before there was a history of, whatever we did, we're going to go to Long Beach. If Long Beach does something, we're going to go to LA.
Sure.
When the two ports are together, it's kind of where you're going to go.
Right.
So it kind of gave us, by working with Long Beach closely.
Clean truck program as well, you're looking at what,
Clean truck.
85% reduction in emission?
Yeah, same thing. I think we unfortunately diverged a little bit there, but I think the key was really kind of recognizing that our joint problems with Long Beach, our joint opportunities are so much bigger than.
Right. I was able to visit the APM terminals, the largest terminal in North America here in our own backyard.
Oh, yeah.
They're doing amazing work. The on-rail dock is there as well. The question on major capital improvements, because as I was up on the crane, I saw Pier 300 there, and even more so with the expansion widening of the Panama Canal. We have to be more competitive. Give me your take on where we stand on our capital improvement projects.
We're going full bore. We're spending about $1 million a day. I think the commission and the staff down there has operated somewhat under the assumption of build it and they will come. That we try to, our kind of view is LA's kind of a high-cost place to do business, but the reason we compete is because we have this great infrastructure, we got the labor force, we got everything
Right.
people need, and so we want to keep building that, and then hopefully people will use it.
Dredging, the channel there?
Yeah, the dredging area is going very well, and that's very, very key for us.
Good. So on time, on budget, we all hope, especially because it is pretty time sensitive, 2014,
Yeah.
and we ought to continue to remain competitive with our other ports across America. There's also been some discussion about the SCIG project, the BNSF SCIG project. Can you tell us a little bit about the scope and purpose of this project and how it tell us how it gives the port a competitive advantage?
Oh, sure.
I know it's not on dock, but it's near dock.
Yeah. Two ways, I think. One is there's kind of advantages, I think, to the industry and to the city, and also kind of an intangible one. To the industry, it lets them kind of assemble these big trains. As I know you know, about more or less half the stuff that comes in goes out by train. It's not locally used. They need to assemble those trains, and the trains get so long. You can assemble some of them on dock, but no matter how much on dock we have, some of it they need to kind of bring stuff from different yards together, and they need to have a place to do that. Right now, they truck it down to City of Commerce or further. Having it close by will save a lot of time. It's a lot more efficient for them to do that. Plus, from the community standpoint and from an environmental standpoint, until we have electric, until everything is electric, just getting all those trucks off the 710, that's a big. I think that's one of the things that more and more as the port grows, it's kind of hurting our business because you can get something in quick, you can get unloaded quick, but then it sits on the 710 forever. Having that SCIG project, the idea is it will also kind of get trucks off the 710.
Right, especially with the movement of the
Yeah.
cargo as well.
Yeah. And
I understand they're going to be one of the most greenest facilities
Yeah.
west of the Mississippi, if not in the country.
It should be what they're doing. It should be the number one green any place. And then we also have kind of a selfish region too on kind of the build it and they'll come. This is a project the railroads are funding themselves. And to some extent you figure if they put in, if they spend $400 million or $500 million, whatever it is of their own money, it's going to be harder to decide, let's ship stuff to Mexico, let's ship stuff to Canada. They have it, they need to use it.
Right. I would recommend that we work with the existing tenants that that the SCIG project will overtake that area. And
Absolutely.
if just, we're just respectful of their needs and wants, and whatever we can do as a port family to listen to their concerns and move forward, because I'd like to see this thing move forward and get built to move with and help us to be more competitive. And lastly, Commissioner, as you know, I'm heavily focused on dynamic waterfront development. It's no big secret. Everywhere I go, I talk about how it's our turn, it's our time to redevelop the Port of Los Angeles for commercial retail, hotel space, convention space. You're a banker. Tell us your thoughts on what we need to do to ensure that this becomes a community viable redevelopment effort. Oh,
I have kind of an odd thought, really. When I first came down there, I still believe this is true. In terms of what the best use of that for the community is, it should be kind of a high-density retail or hotel, or should it be more kind of local use, or more parks, or more, how much can you draw people in there? It's hard to really know in advance what everybody's interest is or what's going to come out of it. But I've always been enchanted, actually, by the kind of the Papadakis theory that, you put up the Grand Promenade next to the waterway, and everything else will take care of itself. People will come, they're going to want to be there.
right.
Whether it's, a little ice cream shop or it's a big shopping center, people are going.
John recently said this is going to be a waterfront where people are going to come and fall in love.
I think
We hope to see that come to fruition. Thanks for your leadership on the moving forward with the RFQ. We're just real excited as a community, as a city, that we will now be a destination, and look at other ports across America. People are coming to visit and spend money, and thanks for your commitment and your support of the USS Iowa, crafted at the Port of Los Angeles. Two great anchors to move forward with our waterfront development plan. So with that, I will move. I'm by myself, but we will move forward full city council and ask for their support as well.
Thank you. I appreciate your support and help.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to item number 3.
Yes, let me ask the CAO, are you prepared?
We go on to your...
Would you like to go ahead and do the convention center item so that
You got number 7
the
first?
CAO can go to another meeting that's
Yes.
going on? Yes, item
Mr.
7.
Santana? Want to read that for the record, please?
Yes.
Are you okay?
Oops, okay. Item 7 is the CAO's report for, and recommendations for enhancement of the governance structure of the LA Convention Center, including many recommendations, including one for release of a request for proposals for the provision of operating services at the convention center. I would suggest that the committee members look at page 14 of the CAO's report for the long list of specific recommendations, and perhaps the CAO will be going through those for you.
Mr. Santana, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having us this morning. Let me start off by sort of echoing the comments made by one of the commissioners, in that what we are proposing here is not about criticizing the current staff that have been doing a phenomenal job at the convention center. They have been put under a tremendous amount of stress over the last few years as a result of our fiscal crisis to do everything they can to operate in the black. And to their credit, they have done so. They have been able to manage a convention center, keep it full, and bring in the dollars necessary to cover its operational cost. What we're proposing is really about looking towards the future of not just the convention center, but tourism as a whole in Los Angeles. And so with that, we'll walk you through the slide presentation that we have. Go to the next slide. So the context of this report comes from our recommendation that this office issued 3 years ago in response to the fiscal crisis. We were directed by your council and the mayor to identify solutions to bring in more revenue to the city, and looking at the convention center as an opportunity to generate additional hotel tax, sales tax, and other revenues was one of the options laid out. It also comes out of a discussion of talking about what at the end is the city's core services. And in the framework of the convention center, is a convention center a core service for the city, or are there other ways we could manage it? We were also asked to look at alternative service delivery models, or P3s, of which this is one, and maintaining a sustainable workforce by slowing down the growth of our city workforce to deal with our pension, healthcare, and compensation costs. And then, of course, looking at generating new revenue. So, in the larger context, our goal here is to bring the LA Convention Center and help it become a top-tier convention center destination in the country and in the world. And that does not just happen. We are recommending that there be a larger strategic plan that be adopted, and an evaluation of the entire function of the convention center from top to bottom, and a realignment of how it's organized. Around the country, there has been significant investment in convention centers. We're reading about the investment being done in Anaheim, and San Francisco more recently made a commitment to expand. Unfortunately, due to our fiscal crisis, we have not been in a situation to make similar investments. We barely are able to cover basic maintenance, and haven't really been able to provide them the kind of support necessary to keep them competitive in comparison to some of the other top-tier destinations. And if you look at how the convention center business has evolved over the last decades in Los Angeles, our goal is to bring it back to its principal mission. Its principal mission is to bring as many people as possible from outside of Los Angeles to Los Angeles to stay at our hotels, to eat at our restaurants, to buy stuff for their kids, and visit the various attractions that Los Angeles has. And due to our fiscal situation, the convention center has been a destination point that has serviced a significant amount of trade shows that bring in people from around the region, but not necessarily from around the country and from around the world. There's a number of challenges that have prevented us from becoming a top-tier convention center destination. Some of these things we can control, other of them are very hard. The most significant, as you've heard before, is the limited number of hotel rooms around the convention center. We believe that another challenge has been that we're not necessarily coordinated in how we facilitate and run the convention center. We haven't developed an effective and aggressive campaign to increase the number of what in the business is called heads on beds.
Repeat that?
Heads on beds.
Oh, heads on beds.
Yes. And in addition to that, we think that we would be able to be more competitive if we brought in a private sector operator to run the day-to-day facility. So on slide number 3, again, looking at our hotel inventory and discussing the challenge that we have, Moscone, which is arguably one of the most successful convention centers in the country, has 12,000 hotel rooms within half a mile. San Diego, another very competitive convention center, 8,200.
Who manages Moscone? Do we know?
Moscone is managed by a private operator. Anaheim, 7,000, and our convention center has only about 2,000 rooms within half a mile radius. So one of our first recommendations is that we establish a goal to increase our convention center attendees by 50%. And part of that includes developing a strategic plan on how to build hotel capacity. The city has been involved in a number of efforts to support the existing of new hotels in the downtown region. We recommend that we do that in a much more coordinated and focused manner, and we establish a specific timeline of when we want to expand the capacity of hotel rooms over the next, between now and the year 2025. And we're requesting, as one of our recommendations, that your committee and the council ask the CLA and I to develop a strategy around using the number of financial incentives that the city offers to bring in that kind of capacity. In slide number 4, we talk about if we look at how we compete with some of our other competitors around the region. Currently, only about 5% of the events themselves are what are really citywide conventions. Comparably, in Anaheim, 51% are. San Francisco has 64%, and San Diego has 71%. These are figures that we have from 2009. Over the last few years, obviously, there's been some improvement due to LA Live and the creation of the Marriott Hotel, but we're still far below where we are among other competitors. What does it mean in terms of heads and beds? It means that in Los Angeles, we have about 145,000 folks. Again, this is 2009 data, actual people walking into the convention center coming from outside of the region, where the far majority, 775,000, come for events that are provided through local public shows, versus San Francisco, which has almost the opposite that we do in terms of the number of folks coming from outside of San Francisco to stay at their hotel rooms. In terms of our organizational structure, we are recommending that we strengthen and streamline how the convention center is managed and provide the convention center an oversight board that will be directly accountable for addressing this conflict between trade shows, which generate revenue, and citywide conventions.
But the Auto Club is not a trade show. Auto Club is Los Angeles. A car design comes from Los Angeles. Detroit comes to LA to see what people are doing. So other than the Auto Club, I'm not for the other one, which begins with a K, or the other one that my son looks at the billboards when I'm at a red light and I just say my Hail Mary. So other than that, I want to separate that, because the Pan Pacific Auditorium used to have the boat show and long before the convention center and all of these other type of shows. So that's one thing I just want to look at, but everything else I agree with you on.
Well, the auto show is something that we should aggressively work to maintain at the convention center. It is a source of pride for us as a city and for Angelenos. It draws people, you're right, not just from around the city, but around the region and around the country and around the world.
Yeah.
So it is something that we want to continue to support and maintain in Los Angeles. What we're arguing is that we need to bring more kinds of conventions that bring folks from outside of Los Angeles to our city.
How much, on a parallel track, I know you're going through the report, but the entertainment business, the Academy Awards, the Grammys, other events at the Shrine Auditorium as well, do bring people from outside the region. Do we track that even though that's not in our convention centers? Does Los Angeles Tourist Board track that?
We could certainly ask them if how they track other venues.
And then the other thing too is half marathons and marathons bring people in. People want to run in Hollywood or run the streets of LA. So there's a whole component here, but this is a focus deal. As we go through, I like this concept of a partnership. You're familiar with the county operation. It's been very successful in some things, so continue on as we go.
Well, we're very fortunate that Los Angeles has an international brand, that most people around the world at some point want to come here to visit and to enjoy the kind of weather that we have and the amenities that we have. And basically what we're arguing is that we need to take advantage of the settings that are natural to Los Angeles and bring those to the convention center business. There's no reason why Chicago, that clearly doesn't have perfect weather most of the time like we do, should be attracting more people from outside of Chicago to Chicago for conventions than we do. And so we're arguing is that through all of the energy being placed around the convention center, this provides us an opportunity to strengthen our strategy to bring folks from outside the region. One of our biggest challenges is how we're organized. Most convention centers around the country that are successful are run by a separate board that is directly accountable for not only reconciling this conflict between trade shows and conventions, but also developing a citywide strategy, working with their tourism board, as we do, to be able to attract as many folks to their areas as possible. And so what we're recommending is doing something very similar to increase the number of folks who come to Los Angeles and generate revenue. So what is...
So with that, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, if I may?
Sure.
With that slide, it's clear, it makes sense that it needs to work that way. I'd just like to hear more on how it's going to...
Well, we have a slide on how
On
we
that,
propose
okay.
what it looked like. We could certainly walk you through that. And
Okay.
we brought in our consultants that help us.
Okay.
So it's on slide number 9. We'll walk through that when we get there.
Okay.
So what does a top-tier convention center look like? The national competitors, of course, Chicago, Orlando, New Orleans, D.C., Atlanta, New York. Regionally, competitors San Diego, San Francisco, Anaheim, Vegas, Phoenix, and Denver. And our convention center competes with Pasadena, Long Beach, Santa Monica, and Portland.
That's unacceptable. I mean, that's, we ought to be up there. I'm sorry to interrupt, but we ought to be a national competitor here in Los Angeles. It's sad to know that we're not up top.
Well, and again, there's a number of challenges for that, and one of the biggest challenges is that we don't have the hotel capacity to
Right.
do that. So that any overarching goal has to include increasing the capacity of hotel room. So what's sort of at the bottom of our bottom line in our recommendation? So we're recommending 3 main strategies. The first is enhance and strengthen the overall governance structure of the convention center. As you saw in the last chart, there are 2 governing boards that play a role. One is the LACC Commission, which is advisory, and the LACC Authority, which deals with all the financing issues. But unlike the airport or the harbor or some of the other proprietaries, there is no direct committee that is 100% accountable for managing the convention center and providing the day-to-day oversight. So we're recommending streamlining the structure, not adding something new, but strengthening the role of the advisory committee, increasing the number of members on it, and providing them greater responsibility. The second thing is that we are recommending that we mirror what Chicago and San Francisco have done and Detroit have done, and bring in a private operator to run the day-to-day operations of the convention center. And we think that through that, we could actually generate savings that could be reinvested in the convention center itself and in subsidizing citywide conventions. And then the third thing is that we recommend optimizing the convention center by realigning our policies and procedures to reflect this renewed commitment. And so part of that will allow for a much more timely and progressive administration and decision-making to keep us competitive. So what does a new governance structure look like? And I could certainly have our consultants walk you through since they're most familiar with it given what goes on. But at the top of it, of course, is the City of Los Angeles and its residents. And then reflecting those priorities as your council and the mayor. We're establishing, strengthening the advisory group, creating a new not a new board, but basically a board that reflects this renewed energy and focus around citywide conventions. And that board would essentially act as a clearinghouse of strategic issues related to the convention center industry. It would maximize flexibility, yet still maintain government control, and will drive the long-term strategic planning. And part of our recommendation is that you adopt a goal of building the number of heads and beds into Los Angeles significantly. That board has a new CEO that we recommend be established, and who reports to that person, to that board, to essentially manage the day-to-day operations and to implement the mission that the city has adopted. That person is there to basically reconcile on a daily basis decisions on trade shows versus conventions, be a troubleshooter, as well as to manage the contracts that will exist within a new management team that is hired, as well as taking the current contract that is managed by my office with the LATCB and having it report under this new governance structure. The reason that's important is that the LATCB engages in an extensive strategy around tourism that we want to continue to support, but we believe it needs to be coordinated more effectively with the activities that are taking place at the convention center and the larger goals that are established. So with that, I'll turn to Susie Siegel, who we asked to help us establish this recommendation. Who'll walk you through the third-party management model.
Okay, do we need the lights still?
No, we're still going.
Yeah, we could.
So Susie, we'll go on to the next slide. Yeah.
So as Miguel said, we really see this as a multi-phased process to really facilitate change in the way it's really a holistic approach. And the second is really looking to transition to that third-party management. And it's really trying to take advantage of what you do well and take advantages of the change you've had in your market. With LA Live, with what Miguel has spoken about, trying to increase your hotel capacity. So there's really three different options out there in the market. Municipal management, which is your current structure. And if you look at probably the 26 largest convention centers in the country, about a quarter, 27% utilize this operating model. The next is to form an independent authority. And as you know, an authority is strongest when it controls a funding source. So in most of those, it also has multiple funding partners in terms of city, county, state. So this is a way to service all of their needs, but still have some autonomy. So about a little bit more than a third are managed through that particular model. And the third one, which we're proposing, is a third-party private management model. So you have a management fee, they're operating your asset on your behalf, but as you found in some of your other projects and programs within the city, they can tend to be more efficient. But at the end of the day, they're still managing your product for you. So the goals that Miguel has outlined, that becomes their objective on your behalf. And one of the interesting things is some of the largest convention centers are really transitioning to that. Yes, sir.
I'm okay.
Oh, sorry. So they're really transitioning to those structures primarily, again, because the autonomy and the advantages. And two of the most recent ones are McCormick Place in Chicago, as well as the Cobo Center in Detroit, that have recently gone into that. On the next page, you'll see, Miguel mentioned it earlier, one of the interesting dynamics of your market is that three of your competitors, or what should be more of a competitive set, are in your same state. And that is somewhat unique when you look at, Moscone, Anaheim, San Diego. Not only are they who you should be competing, but your geographical proximity. And you look at how they're managed right now. Moscone is privately managed by SMG. San Diego, they're going through a little bit of a transition, but essentially they are through this independent authority. And Anaheim is municipally managed, but anyone in the industry would tell you in general, they have a lot of autonomy for being publicly managed. And they do not only with their convention center, but their stadium, their arena, with all of their public assets, they've always done a very good job and have somewhat of an autonomous structure within a municipal system. So
Can you-
what if-
excuse me, forgive my ignorance, Mr. Chair, if I may. Independent authority compared to a private company. What's the difference between the two?
So a private management company would be an SMG
Right.
or an AEG or Global Spectrum, and an authority itself could be like the Metropolitan Exposition Authority. So it is an authority, like Chicago had an authority that actually managed its facilities. Now it has a private management company that manages. There's still the authority and its structure and what it does, but it no longer manages the day-to-day activities
Kind
of
of
that
separate
center.
itself. Okay.
Does that
Yes, thank you.
So really, our recommendation is taking into consideration two things: what's being done industry-wide, but more specifically, really within your most competitive set and where we think you should be strategically positioned. And as Miguel said earlier, one of the things that we really feel can be accomplished in a perhaps shorter period of time with this transition is to try and get that larger amount of those citywide conventions. And you're absolutely right in terms of, from a broader perspective, what LA has to offer and what it does. When you look at your all-star games you host, when you're in the playoffs, when you're film, you have a lot. But I think the focus is how can we use this asset and maximize it from that perspective. So the next slide is, okay, what does that mean? If we were to transition into an alternative business model approach, we really looked at two things as part of the analysis. One was, if we were to remain status quo, what does that mean? And so we really relied on staff to help come up with those, those assumptions as they would show. And then what can we do with private management? So what you'll see is it's a pretty substantial increase in savings. And again, we're looking at it from a more holistic approach as it relates to the city's general fund subsidy. And you'll see in this table that it can be anywhere from, say, on the low side to about $2 million to $3.8 million a year, and on the high side, the more aggressive side, anywhere from around $6 to $8.5. So we're looking at, over that period, somewhere between $15 to $37 million. So, the next question is, well, how is that done? And again, because of some of the advantages you have with a third-party management company, we think we will be able to maximize, again, all these relationships you have, but also to get more market value, if you will. So we see the opportunity in the short term to increase some of your revenue streams.
Now, our CAO supports this,
Yes.
clearly. So this is real important. And I just wanted to ask a technical question. When we get to council, you could make a presentation, because I'm sure some members will have a variety of comments on this here, but I think it's real important to see that. It was an interesting point that I never thought of before when you articulated how we have a tough competition, because Anaheim, which is an hour's drive, San Diego, 2 hours drive, San Francisco, 1 hour flight, all our big competitors, all in the same state. I don't know, I guess Florida has Miami and Orlando as a little competitive thing, and maybe a little, Tampa and whatever, but I remember, whatever the case is, I think it's clear that this is a step that we have to take. So I want to hear from the department's representative, as you conclude, whatever else you have to say on this as we move forward. Thank you.
So we're almost done with our presentation.
And I'm good with it, but I just want to let you know, once you score, once you're in the end zone, it's okay to kick it to somebody else.
We're done.
Okay. So Phil.
Good
Thank you.
morning. I'm sorry, we're good, thank you. Good morning, Philip Hill, CEO and Interim General Manager, Los Angeles Convention and Exhibition Center. I thought I'd just spend a few minutes. What you're going to hear from me in many parts is complementary to what you're hearing from the CAO. And let me just take you through a little journey about who we really are and how we add value. Well, the LACC, the Los Angeles Convention Center, is internationally respected as a convention center. And it has a brand and reputation that is recognized worldwide, as also are brought up by the CAO.
Yeah.
The convention center hosts the most noteworthy and complex of events on the globe. Some of these events you've heard of. I'm going to name off a few, being Electronic Entertainment Expo,
Right.
the Los Angeles Auto Show, Microsoft World Partners Conference, Anime Expo, NBA All-Stars, Support the Grammys and Emmys, and about 350 other events. If you ever get a chance to visit our lobby, the walls really showcase commendations from these wide variety of events, highlighting their trust and respect of this convention center. A key operational component of why this works is we serve and treat these clients as our family. This is the core reason why so many of them call Los Angeles their home. Today's discussion is really initiating discussion on how to increase the number of events that utilize our hotel rooms. We call those citywide events, and also private management and operation of the convention center. In my following short comments, I'm going to focus on two primary areas, and one's going to be a 2006 operational transition of the center to augment the general fund, and the second thing is the new goal, the future, and the focus of citywide conventions. So in 1971, as most of you know, the Municipal Auditorium was built, and that was expanded in '93 to become the convention center that we know today. The need was identified in '93 to add significant nearby hotel capacity in order to attract citywide events. Those are the events that fill hotel rooms. Unfortunately, only a fraction of those hotels were actually constructed, and that was hindered by the worsening economy of that time period. Without significant hotel capacity, LA understood that it would be unable to attract those large citywide conventions. Through the efforts of LA Tourism and the Convention Center, LA still attracts a number of citywide events. But to attract those events, what we basically do is we discount the space rental in the Convention Center to nearly zero, which is actually a good trade-off because the goal is it fills hotel rooms. But it left the Convention Center unable to cover its operational cost, like other centers nationally. In going to 2006, we altered our operational model to generate additional income, offset operational expenses, and augment the city's general fund as requested by members of city leadership. In addition to attracting citywides, we pushed hard and started booking revenue-generating consumer and local trade events, filmings, and meetings. And through a partnership with LA Tourism, our teams also increased the number of citywides that were produced. The result has been a convention center that has fully covered its operational expenses for 7 years in a row, exceeding city expectations. The implementation of this operational model required a really significant change in our organizational culture and how our employees operate. Those employees transition into entrepreneurs, focusing on exceeding client expectations and driving positive client experiences. As a result, the Convention Center has enjoyed significant recognition and awards from within the industry and international brand recognition. So today, we are beginning a new journey. The goal, transform Los Angeles into a city that focuses its convention center primarily on the attraction of citywide events, those events that fill hotel rooms, thereby enhancing both the economics and job performance of Los Angeles. This model has been demonstrated as far as focusing on citywide conventions. This model has been demonstrated nationwide. It is an attainable model, and it requires 4 primary components to be successful. Those 4 are, number 1, you need a top-tier convention center with ample exhibit and meeting space, an expert staff, and strong local complementary venues. We have that both in the convention center and with our venues with Staples Arena and the LA Live campus next door. The second of 4 points, which is critical, is a sales and marketing expertise to identify, compete for, and capture high-value events. We have that in LA Tourism. Item 3 of 4, you need a destination city that has the star power and appeal to attract the most significant of events. And that's really the definition of Los Angeles. We have that. And as the CAO pointed out, item 4, we need hotel capacity. That is a driving factor with the numbers that you saw up on the chart. So as interim general manager, my current focus and support of you is really transition management while maintaining the strong brand position and reputation that this convention center has earned. And I just wanted to say definitely on the record that I commend the staff of this convention center for bringing us to the strong brand position that we enjoy today. Their drive, dedication, and industry expertise are vital to maintaining successful event operations and the associated reputation and brand position of the Los Angeles Convention Center as the city explores the implementation of such a transition. Thank you.
Very good, Phil. Thank you. Thank you very much. Any questions? No? That's very good. Okay. Do you have any questions?
No, I'm really excited about, the transformation. I just go back, like, almost 15 years ago, I worked downtown LA as a police officer, and to see the transformation where I remember arresting drug addicts, prostitutes, gang members on Georgia, Francisco, what's there now, it's amazing, LA Live. It's transformed the area. What are your thoughts and concerns about the existing employees there now? One, and then with the recent news of this possibly moving forward with the potential shows that have already been booked, is that going to have a negative impact on the shows that are already in place?
Okay, the first question has to do, I believe, with the employees.
Right.
The impact on the employees now, right now, just in general, the employees, of course, are understandably concerned about what the future might hold. And the most important thing in being able to provide protections for them is a combination of providing protections for the employees and ensuring that there is a good transition path with this process. But also, more importantly, is that while we transition and go through discussions that the City Council and Office of the Mayor will go through, is to ensure that we really have the resources in place so that we can continue maintaining the brand position of this convention center and its effectiveness. Our clients have contractual obligations, and it's vital that the center is able to meet those obligations as time goes on.
If I could speak to that as well, I think the city and my office is committed, and I think your council and the mayor will be as well, that as in terms of the existing employees, there will be two options, either to remain city employees and identifying comparable vacant positions throughout the system for those common classifications, or joining the private contractor and with a guaranteed for a guaranteed period of time. This transition is not a unique thing to Los Angeles, and perhaps I could ask either Susie or Gail to talk about other jurisdictions that have gone through similar transitions.
Yeah, I totally agree, Miguel, and to parlay on Philip's comments, that is certainly going to be a key issue. And, other cities have done it, but I will say one thing. If you decide to go the third-party management, my experience having worked for a company eons ago, but seeing it in my professional career, is they tend to keep a very high percentage of existing employees when you go through that change, because no one knows the building better than people have been there, for an extended period of time. So the other thing is sometimes it provides those employees with additional tools through training and experience in a different perspective that actually makes them improve their performance, and they become general managers elsewhere. So, my experience is that it's not an all or nothing by any means. They try and keep, upwards of 80% typically is not, if not higher. So I think that's important, because the transition period is, and as it relates to clients, you're absolutely right. We have them under contract, but this transition tends to be more positive, particularly for the citywide conventions that we're talking about, because most likely they will have worked with whoever you might decide to choose to move forward with that. So the transition from public to third party tends to be an easier one for your meeting base than if you were going the other way, where there might be some skepticism about how the process may go. And, I'm happy to let Gail, she's seen the transition as well, go through that. I helped SMG privatize back in the day the Miami Beach Convention Center. And I thought they did an excellent job, again, in that there is usually a very I consider a fair period of evaluation, at least 6 months, where you're, understanding their roles and respects, or positions and responsibilities. Sometimes you have a really, really skilled person, but because of some of the, civil service constraints in their position level, they might actually be better suited in another area. It just doesn't work within your system. So I think it's really a good opportunity for the new team to evaluate your existing employees, and your existing employees, frankly, to see what the change is going to be. And is that a direction they want?
Nobody likes change, but
Nobody likes change. It might
change
be-
sometimes is
it
the
might-
thing that makes you get to the next day after the next day.
Exactly. Gail, I don't know if you want to add anything.
that's fine.
from your experience.
All right, Gail, that's good. I know Mark Lieberman's here from the Los Angeles Tourist Board. I'd love to hear his wisdom after almost, I won't say 4 decades of service in the issue. It's hard to believe, Mark, you're going to be leaving the Tourist Board as its executive, but give us your thoughts.
Mark Lieberman, President of the Los Angeles Tourism Convention Board. We had the opportunity to meet with Miguel and his staff and have obviously reviewed the proposal. And we think that this is very, very positive news for Los Angeles. And also, we think it's positive news for the convention business. As an organization, which I've now been associated with for now almost nine years, we have advocated these changes to align our goals with the LACC's goals, with the common goal, as Miguel.
I just want to correct you. Let's call it Los Angeles Convention Center, because LACC's
Okay, the Los Angeles.
Mine Junior
Convention
College
Center-
on Vermont.
Okay, that's, as long as you don't call us
Okay.
LA Inc.
I won't, not anymore, but I know you got that,
Okay? Okay. And I think that Miguel put it correctly. We want to align these goals so that we can put more heads in our hotels. And so we think this is very, very positive. We agree also, we certainly agree, as we've advocated over the many years, of changing the booking policy to include shortening the booking window from 24 months to 12 months, and also adjusting the discount policy to reflect today's practices. And also, which is we didn't touch on here, we think is very, very important, is to eliminating the grandfather rights of certain consumer shows. In no way are we saying that Los Angeles, and as you pointed out, Councilman Labange, in no way are we saying that the auto show should not be part of Los Angeles's fabric. It's very, very important to Los Angeles. We are certainly advocates of that. It does bring a certain number of hotel night stays to the city of Los Angeles. We do question, of course, what month and what period of time during the year the auto show should be here in Los Angeles, so that in essence we have certain months that aren't restricted, and certain times, I should say, and aren't restricted in blocking the booking of conventions. With regard to the overall question of privatization, you did ask the question whether or not our customers, those that are on the books and those that will be our potential customers, would be affected. Absolutely not. Customers are only concerned about one thing, and that is the service that is provided by that convention center. And I am not here, of course, to discuss the economics, hopefully the very positive economics of privatizing the convention center, but we think that no matter who runs the convention center, as a private entity, we, of course, as an organization, will continue to work very, very closely with them. We think that we have seen very, very positive convention centers run by private organizations throughout the country, as was mentioned. With regard to the governance recommendations, here again, we've taken a look at them. We have, as an organization, need to make sure that our board of directors is briefed on these changes, because they would be changes to our reporting relationship and to the governance possibly of our own organization. We will want to make sure that our two boards aren't redundant and that their roles and responsibilities are clearly defined.
Can you respond to that, Miguel?
No, we agree. I think that we share a lot in common, although we do have distinctive roles. And so part of this would be to make sure that we're not stepping on each other's toes and we're clear on what areas of responsibility the Convention Center Board would have and what areas of responsibility their board would have.
You know, if we had been talking about this a year or so ago, I think we wouldn't put a real asterisk here. But now, because of our funding model is so different, we have to remember that the majority of our funding today comes from the hotels because of the creation of the Tourism Marketing District, and most of that money goes for advertising. The money that comes from the city, of course, does go for certain advertising, but of course the majority of it goes for the selling of conventions and self-contained meetings. But we do agree that there needs to be a holistic view of tourism, and that the infrastructure needs to be developed in the city, and there are many issues that need to be addressed, whether it be transportation issues, hotel issues, etc. We are going to, as Miguel and I have talked, we are going to have Miguel come to our board meeting and discuss this with our board going forward.
One other, you just prompted an issue. On your report here, you list all the other cities. Do you have any that list how much San Diego spends on promotion, or San Francisco, or?
Yeah, I would tell you that they do spend more than we do. But when we talk about promotion, we should be very, very careful about how we define promotion, because there is promotion in promoting for conventions, and there is promotion for promoting visitors that come to Los Angeles.
I'm a giant proponent of zoos, because that's where you learn about nature and conservation. But I also, as a child, I'm 58 now, but I mean, anytime you heard San Diego, they always had the zoo behind it. And I think they promoted it to get the families of Southern California to go to San Diego to go to the motels. So that's one promotion.
Yes.
But for convention promotions,
I would say that
a little more sophisticated, is it more like would be in a trade magazine as opposed to a?
No, I would say that now with our tourism marketing district and having additional dollars, we will be spending more money in promoting conventions than we have done in the past. I would say from, the majority of expenses that one has for at convention and visitors bureaus for convention sales is really in the personnel area.
Right.
And we're pretty comparable in those areas.
And I saw an ad for the Cal State Northridge Performing Arts Center. I know Thousand Oaks has a Performing Arts Center. ASC has facilities, the Royce Hall at UCLA, all competing infrastructure for this one situation. Convention rooms, hotels at the airport, again, I'm telling you, I mean, I remember when they landed planes east of Sepulveda, so it was a long time ago, but we went out, the best popcorn in the city was at the airport. It's the truth. The question is, they build hotels, but they have convention rooms in the hotel. And you were in aviation for 30 years before you got in this, right?
Yes.
Do they propose, I mean, like a lot of the airport hotels are to fly in, go into the meeting, and maybe fly out the same day, or spend one night, just business?
Right. Well, I think it's a variety of...
Because that's totally different.
Well, no, yes and no.
Yes and no.
And the reason for that is I think we shouldn't forget that, we have a very large, almost the largest concentration of our hotel rooms in the city of Los Angeles are at the airport.
Right.
Okay? And those hotels at the airport, at times, when we have large conventions, as we have the American Heart Association coming here in November of this year, which will be one of our larger conventions with over 50,000 room nights, similar to the Microsoft convention. They will use hotel rooms at the airport. And one of the reasons why this proposal, I think, is so important, and the piece that, of course, that is important for us is, is the change to the entire layout of the convention center with the stadium, et cetera, is that we can attract new hotels, which also will attract larger conventions. we are a city that needs to have larger conventions. And if we have larger conventions, I think that we will, of course, use more hotel rooms in the city, but at times we will again use the airport. It should be noted, when we talk about the airport, that the airport hotels have the highest occupancy in all of Los Angeles. And as an example, for the month of July, their occupancy was over 90%. So there is continued growth at the airport because they do have those small meetings, not considered conventions because they're not using the convention center, but they do have meetings, and their stays are relatively shorter than we would find downtown or in other parts of the city where their stays are normally about 1.3 to 1.4 nights per stay.
Very good. Joe, any questions?
I know we have approximately 2,000 hotels, 2,000 beds. We need to get to 5,000 according to the CAO's report. Maybe this is more of Mr. Santana's question. With your recommendations today, how are we going to get to that? How are we going to add 3,000 beds?
I need to pronounce it.
Well, a lot of that is happening now organically. Over the last several months, there's been a couple of hotels that have announced. But we think that the two things. One is establishing the goal, and two, one of the distinctions between our two boards, as was being asked, is to work with the new governing structure to develop that strategy, utilizing the various tools that the city has, both from a land use perspective as well as to help subsidize, perhaps in some cases, some of the hotel capacity that's being built.
Thank you.
Mark?
Yeah, I think that, I talk to, as the CAO office talks to potential hotel people that are interested in building hotels. I talk to them on a regular basis also. I think that, we have things that are coming together that are so important. And we talk about the stadium. The stadium is so important because it is bringing a football team here, it is going to drive more hotels down in that area. And that, of course, will lend itself, I believe, to bringing more conventions, and also, of course, with the change in the configuration of the convention center. I think you change the configuration of the convention center, you build the stadium, you will undoubtedly have more hotels. And as business is growing, I think Miguel is absolutely right. We're seeing now we're going to have another 400 rooms across the street from the JW Marriott with the advent of the two Marriott residents and Courtyard by Marriott, which is very, very positive. It's going in the right direction.
I would just suggest that we give the board some timeline, because we can sit and talk about this, but,
Agree.
give them some
Figure that out, Miguel. Okay, that'd be good.
set goals.
Also, I was going to remark, 12 years ago, the LA Live was the parking lot. Absolutely, it was a convention. Anybody went to the Democratic Convention 12 years ago? Yeah, it was unbelievable to think of the change. And I think at the convention, people like to walk out into something, and I think, Phil, you said that you have your partners there, whether it's Staples or whether it's LA Live, it's something in all the drama that's going on downtown. But, so this is good steps. So, I also, one more question, Joe?
For Mark, you supported the shortening the booking time from 24 months to 12 months. Is that going to have an impact on our LA Auto Show and others that...
Well, I think that the impact on the auto show will come, of course, by changing the policy on our grandfather rights. And again, we've had the auto show in this city for I don't know how many years. We've had it in different months of the year, whether it be November, December, in January. I am not here to say that one month is better than another month for the auto show. That is, of course, not. From where I sit, as we try to book conventions, and as the CAO knows, as we try to book conventions, the month of December is not a convention month, not just in Los Angeles, but all over the convention, all over the country. November, with the auto show here, of course, blocks our ability to book conventions. And we have talked about this before, because it's not that, remember that the auto show consumes the convention center for, a 20-plus day period of time.
If I could add, we had an opportunity to meet with the folks at the auto show and first shared with them that we consider them partners in bringing in and maximizing this asset, and they've been very committed to the convention center and to Los Angeles, and we're going to do everything we can to preserve that relationship. And they also expressed, their commitment to the region, but also their willingness to work with us in the future, and as they have in the past. And so I think there's a way to make this a win-win, where we increase the number of conventions and at the same time continue to maintain that relationship with.
And they're a huge moneymaker for the convention as well. So-
And, this isn't the first market to deal with this. There's obviously there's obviously an auto show in Detroit. There's an auto show in Chicago. There's an auto show here. They managed to work that system out because it is important. And having done work for the auto show in Detroit, I understand that's not an event, that's an industry. And the date does matter. And everything about that matters, I'm sure, is as critical here. So I think it's meant, how can both of these important factors or both of these important events and industries work together to maximize people coming to Los Angeles?
One important quick item in response to your question regarding the booking policy. I do agree that once we are in position with a different structure, hotels, the reduced booking window is critical. The concern that we'll, I'm sure, work with the CEO and others beforehand is managing the transition. If we don't do it carefully, a reduced booking window in the near term will greatly erode our ability to generate revenue. Therefore, it could have near-term general fund impacts to be reviewed.
I just want to be on record that if we do lose an LA Auto Show type here, we're going to take a hit, and then we're going to have to dip into our general fund, so.
Right.
That's not
my
an
concern.
option, I don't
Okay.
think. Realistically, that's not an
Just a
option.
technical question, what if the auto show went to San Pedro?
We'll welcome them with open
All right,
arms.
all right.
We have to get our LA Water
Let's hear it.
first, Mike, right?
Right there. Let's talk to Andy Fusehi from the auto show himself, right here. Mark, if you could vacate your seat for a moment. Andy? Thank you, Andy.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councilmembers Canano. My name is Andy Fusehi. I'm the General Manager of the LA Auto Show. As you know, the Auto Show has been a fixture in Los Angeles for over 100 years, and we're the anchor tenant of the convention center since it opened in '71. And, the past 41 years, we've probably paid over $100 million in rent to the city, and some years we've accounted for as much as 25% of the revenue of the center. And currently, I think the economic impact to the city is in excess of $120 million. While the proposed privatization of the convention center management and the new governance structure is of interest to us, naturally, of more interest to us is the new booking policy proposed by the CAO's report and the adverse impact the policy as written would have on the auto show. 6 years ago, the auto show moved its dates from January to November to meet the objectives of the auto industry, the automobile press, and the city of dealers in the city of Los Angeles to have its own time frame in the international calendar, and most importantly, to stay away from the Detroit Auto Show. That was what was holding back the Los Angeles Auto Show from being a global auto show, because it didn't have the appropriate dates. The CA report seems to say that because of the so-called grandfather clause that the city, that enables the city to license the auto show 10 years in advance, the city is losing out convention business during a 1 or 2 period in November. This is simply not true. Number one, we're not actually booked out for 10 years, and that's simply an option the city has. There's nobody forcing the city to actually book us out for 10 years. The auto show can and does move its license date at the request of the city when a significant convention comes along. That is in fact the case this year. The Heart Association that we talk about that is coming in, the dates they have, we move 2 weeks later to be able to accommodate the Heart Association, which is a very significant event. The CAO report acknowledges that the significant contribution to revenue that the auto show makes to the city and the city's incentive to work with the auto show if there's a need to adjust the auto show calendar by a week or two in the event that there's a potential to book some major convention during that early period in November. We already do that under the existing booking practices, but there's nothing in the proposed booking policy to define the conditions under which the auto show would be moved a week or two if potential business came along. We respectfully request that the proposed booking policy be amended to reflect the existing conditions under the currently with the city changes of the auto show. These conditions provide that the replacement event must have a minimum anticipated size of 40,000 room nights, like the Heart Association, has an executed license of at least 2 years in advance, and that they use the entire convention center. If the show is moved, it will be moved 2 weeks. Because the Heart Association met all these conditions, the auto show is 2 weeks later this year than we normally would have.
You ever see Damn Yankees?
Pardon?
You ever see Damn Yankees, the movie?
Yeah.
What's the most famous song in Damn Yankees?
You gotta have heart.
Very good, and you had heart. So we gotta have heart for the auto show. So I'm gonna ask you, Mr. CAO, to look to what is said. Please present that in form for the CAO. Come up with some policy that lets a traditional, I like my grandfather. He's in heaven now, but, you know, you said grandfather, that's a magic word. That's, every family brings their family back to that show. It's one thing that they do, and plus to market it to get people from outside. And the International Frankfurt Auto Show has 9 halls that they just go and go and go. So I think that's what I want to ask. We could have a friendly amendment that the CAO find a way on the auto show, because that's LA all the way.
We concur.
You know, okay, thank you very much. Okay, good. I have no other cards. Does anyone else want to speak or need to speak at all? With that being said, at this time, I'd like to move forward and approve the CAO report with recommendations to streamline the governance of the convention center and to work with the Los Angeles Tourist Board on that as well, and to prepare an RFP for on-site to operate the convention center. And this is going to, seconded by Joe, this will go to Budget and Finance Committee where it is. And is there any other clarification, Mr. CAO?
Yeah, if you could just add one more recommendation to the list that we have, to also instruct our office to work with the city attorney to revise the administrative code to reflect current discount policy operating practices.
So ordered on that. And this has nothing to do with potential, but all to do with the future of a football stadium. This is about the conventions. We need to do this whether the National Football League comes here or not. And this is very important. So I think it's been good. And Mr. Hill, I thank you and your staff and those who've reported in on it. There's nothing else before us other than some other items.
Yes.
We're going to move this agenda along. And Mr. CAO. Okay, next item.
Yes, under
How are
item
you?
3,
Good to see you.
the Board of Harbor Commissioners submits for council approval the First Amendment to the agreement with PB Americas, now named Parsons Brinkerhoff. This contract is for construction management services for the Berth 200 rail yard project at the port. The amendment would recognize the consultant's recent name change and would extend the contract term by 1 year for a total term of 4 years, expiring in July 2014.
All right, if we could hold on the chatter in the back.
And the CAO has submitted a report and recommendation on this matter.
Thank you.
Good morning, council members. Michael Christensen, Deputy Executive Director, Harbor Department. We're requesting an extension of 1 year for the contract with Parsons Brinkerhoff, who's doing construction management on the Berth 200 rail yard project. Berth 200 rail yard is a key project in the development of the TRAPAC terminal. In order to move that along, we need to get another year for construction management services.
Good.
Mike, I understand you're the railroad guy in the Port of Los Angeles. You have the expertise. Just a reminder to the public how important this Berth 200 rail yard project is and what's the scope and purpose of it.
It's an absolutely key piece in the puzzle for TRAPAC. In order to build the TRAPAC terminal, the new modern TRAPAC terminal, we have to give them an on-dock rail yard. That rail yard goes where the existing Pier A rail yard is, which is base of operations for the PHL switching line. So we have to build them a new home before we can move them out of their existing home and then build a new trade
Your
factory.
commission supports it,
Absolutely.
and the Dr. Nance supports it, and you support it? Okay, how soon does it go to council?
I'm sorry?
How soon to city council?
Within the next week?
Good, Joe, you support it?
Of course, as long as it's we're going to remain the number one port in America, and this project's going to help, I'm supporting it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, good. So ordered. Thank you.
Michael.
Thank you, Michael. You look good in LA Live magazine. I like it. Next item.
Under item 4, the Board of Harbor Commissioners submits for approval Foreign Trade Zone Operating Agreement Number 123064 with Custom Air Warehouse. This is a contract for the operation of a Foreign Trade Zone warehouse and office at Site 10E, which is in Carson, California. The agreement has an initial term of 5 years with 3 5-year renewal options for a potential maximum term of 20 years. And the CAO has submitted a report.
And we've got the report, it's consent item, we feel good about it, this is the right thing to do, we do a lot of that. And I saw a report recently of the port and how you have your, I don't want to use the octopus term, but your tentacles all through the region with these trade, as far north as Palmdale, I think, in some areas where you...
Riverside County.
Riverside County, which is very good. Thank you, we're going to recommend approval. Next item.
Under item 5, the Board of Airport Commissioners submits for approval the second amendment to the contract with Anderson and Krieger, which is a contract for advisory and litigation services relating to federal regulations and law concerning aviation matters. The proposed amendment would extend the term by 1 year and would add standard provisions concerning campaign contributions by contractors to elected city officials. Also would update the hourly rates for legal services.
Mr. CAO, good deal?
Yes, we agree with this.
We agree?
City Attorney's Office, yes, we agree with
And
you.
you agree, but we got to get you off furloughs. Yeah, good, okay. So you'll pay for it, right? The department will. Okay, recommend approval.
You move approval. And item 6, the Board of Airport Commissioners submits for approval the second amendment to a contract with Ryco Americas Corporation. This is a contract for the lease and purchase of multifunctional printers and copiers and related maintenance services. The proposed amendment would extend the term by 7 months, ending on April 30th, 2013, in order to coincide with the end of a 5-year lease term for the equipment. Also would add provisions for compliance with the charter regarding limitations on contributions by contractors for city elected officials.
Very good. We support this. This is good. Your board supports it. Gina Marie supports it. Okay, so ordered. Thank you. Sorry we couldn't pull these off when I had to run down.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, no other items before this committee. I want to thank Joe Buscaino, the good councilman of the 15th. This meeting is adjourned.